You wake up next to someone who loves you. They kiss you goodbye before work. You text during the day. You say, I love you before bed. And yet, you feel alone. It's not the kind of loneliness that comes from being single. It's quieter, more confusing. It's the loneliness of being known but not seen, loved but not felt. And you can't even explain it because on paper, everything looks fine. You tell yourself, I should be grateful. But gratitude doesn't stop the ache. So what's wrong? Why can you be loved and still feel lonely? A few years ago, I met a woman named Emily. She'd been married for 12 years, 2 kids, a gentle husband, a good life. On their anniversary, he surprised her with a dinner reservation at their favorite restaurant. She smiled through the evening, thanked him for the flowers, and later that night cried alone in the bathroom. When I asked her why, she said, I think he loves me, but I don't feel like he sees me anymore. She wasn't angry. She wasn't ungrateful. She was invisible in her own marriage. She wasn't missing romance. She was missing resonance, the feeling that someone was tuned to the same frequency. What Emily didn't realize, and what most people don't, is that loneliness isn't always about being alone. It's about being unfelt. It's about the emotional distance between two nervous systems that stopped reaching for each other. You can share a bed, a bank account, a last name, and still live like pen pals trapped in the same house. Most people think loneliness means no one cares about me. But loneliness is actually your body saying, I can't feel connection anymore. According to social neuroscience, loneliness isn't just a mood. It's a biological alarm, as real as hunger or pain. Your brain treats social disconnection as a threat and shifts you into self-protection. And like hunger, it doesn't always mean you're starving. It means your emotional metabolism has slowed. You're surrounded by food, but unable to absorb it. That's why people in long-term relationships can feel the deepest loneliness, because the love is still there, but the neural feedback loop of feeling loved is broken. Your body stops registering emotional safety. Your nervous system moves from co-regulation to self-preservation. You begin protecting yourself even while being held. Every time you feel emotionally connected to someone, a friend, a partner, even a pet, your body releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It lowers cortisol, steadies your heart, and tells your brain, you're safe with this person. But oxytocin doesn't come from love itself. It comes from emotional attunement, the felt sense that someone notices your inner world and responds. If you talk about your day and your partner nods but doesn't engage, no oxytocin. If you share a dream and they change the subject, no oxytocin. If they listen, but their eyes say, I'm somewhere else, still no oxytocin. The brain doesn't register love through logic. It registers love through synced nervous systems. Psychologists call this limbic resonance, when two people's emotions mirror each other in real time. It's what happens between a mother and her baby, between lovers who can finish each other's sentences, between old friends who understand without words. When limbic resonance breaks, loneliness begins, even if the relationship looks perfect from the outside. The biology is brutal and beautiful. In seminal work at UCLA, researchers showed that social rejection activates some of the same brain regions involved in physical pain, especially the anterior cingulate cortex. To the brain, being emotionally excluded hurts. It's not just in your head, it's in your neurology. So the small gaps start to matter. They're scrolling while you're talking. They say, I'm just tired. You begin censoring your thoughts because it's easier than being misunderstood. Slowly, the silence grows. You share a couch, but not presence. You share routines, but not rhythm. The laughter fades into polite conversation. Loneliness doesn't arrive like a storm. It seeps in, one missed glance, one rushed goodbye, one unspoken truth at a time. And the cruel part, you start doubting yourself. Am I too sensitive? Am I asking for too much? You stop reaching out, not because you don't care, but because reaching out started to hurt. This is the loneliness feedback loop. The lonelier you feel, the more vigilant your brain becomes to signs of rejection. That vigilance makes you defensive. Defense creates distance. Distance deepens loneliness. The alarm gets louder. You retreat further. You protect yourself from the very connection you crave. Years ago, during an interview tied to the Harvard study of adult development, an 84-year-old man told me, "It's not the love I miss. It's being known his wife had passed away. She knew how I took my coffee without asking. She noticed when my jokes meant I was nervous. She saw me, and I didn't realize how rare that was until it was gone." Maybe that's what we all really want, to be felt in the small, invisible ways, to be seen in the pauses, not the performances. But loneliness isn't just emotional, it's physiological. A large meta-analysis found that people with stronger social relationships had about a 50% greater likelihood of survival over time than those with weaker ties, a health effect on par with many classic risk factors. And more recently, the U.S. Surgeon General warned that poor social connection can raise the risk of premature death at levels comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. That's not metaphor. That's public health. Here's a twist most people miss. People in unsatisfying relationships often score higher in loneliness than people who are single. Emotional isolation in proximity can be more corrosive than honest solitude. Your body expects co-regulation from the people closest to you. When it doesn't happen, the result is chronic emotional starvation. Loneliness also changes how the brain processes experience. Reviews of social pain research suggest that chronic disconnection is associated with altered activation in regions like the anterior cingulate cortex and insula, areas tied to error detection, threat monitoring, and interoception. In plain language, the lonelier you feel, the more your system scans for danger and the harder it becomes to feel safe, even during a hug. It's not that touch disappears, it's that your nervous system can't fully let it in. And our environment doesn't help. Technology offers the appearance of closeness without the chemistry of it. We text, react, scroll. Constant micro-hits of visibility that never sink into the nervous system. In one national study of young adults, heavier social media use was associated with higher perceived social isolation. We've mistaken visibility for intimacy. We share everything but reveal nothing. So even in love, we feel unseen because we've outsourced connection to pixels. There's another story that mirrors Emily's. David had been married for 15 years. His wife loved him deeply, but he felt like a background character in his own home. He provided. He stayed loyal. But he said, "I don't think anyone's looked at me in months." Not looked at him, looked into him. "Sometimes I wish she'd get mad," he admitted, "just to know I still matter enough to upset her." That is emotional neglect, not abuse, not betrayal, just absence, the quiet erosion of attention. At the Gottman Institute, which has studied thousands of couples, researchers found that relationships rarely end because of too much fighting. They end because partners stop turning toward each other's small bids for connection. A sigh, a joke, a question asked from the other room. Each one is a door. Most couples don't slam those doors. They just forget to notice they're there. If this sounds familiar, you're not broken. Your biology is working exactly as designed. Human attachment begins as a dance of attunement. Decades ago, developmental psychologist Edward Tronick showed in the still face paradigm. What happens when a caregiver suddenly stops responding? The infant protests, then withdraws. The nervous system learns fast. Presence teaches safety. Unresponsiveness teaches vigilance. We carry those lessons quietly into adulthood, into our marriages and our friendships, into the places where we hoped we could finally rest. So how do you come back from loneliness you feel inside love? Not with grand romantic gestures, with micro-presence. You can't talk a nervous system into safety. You have to show it, steadily. Start small. When someone speaks, let your eyes rest, not scan. Put the phone down, physically, to let your hand say, I'm here. Mirror their tone before you mirror their logic. Ask one more question than feels necessary. Name the emotion you think you see, and let them correct you. Share 3 minutes of comfortable silence without fixing anything. These are not hacks, they are signals. And our bodies are always listening for signals. There's also a practical rhythm that helps. Daily bids. Notice one small detail about their world and say it out loud. You sounded proud when you told that story. You've been quieter at night. Are you tired or just full? Turning toward a bid doesn't mean you agree. It means you're oriented toward them. Over time, those tiny choices add up to trust. On the days that feel colder, go back to the body. The first language. Sit shoulder to shoulder. Walk at the same pace and let your footfalls sink. Let your breathing soften together in a quiet room. Not as a trick, but as a reminder. Connection is not only a conversation, it's a coordination. And if you're the one who feels unseen, there's a brave step. Let yourself be seen again. Not by oversharing, but by letting one unpolished truth out into the air. I'm here with you, but I feel far away. I'm scared to say this, but I miss being known. Courage is contagious in relationships. Someone has to go first. You can also make the environment friendlier to connection. Put your phones outside the bedroom or on a single charging dock at dinner. Create a 10-minute transition ritual when one of you returns home. No chores, no screens, just decompression. Try a question of the day jar. Not as a game, but as a way to bypass autopilot. What made you smile and you almost didn't tell me? What hurt today that you wish hadn't? Novelty feeds attention. Attention feeds intimacy. Here's the part people forget. Closeness and curiosity are twins. The early spark in a relationship comes from novelty. The later spark comes from depth. Both require attention. The more we assume we already know the person we love, the more invisible they become to us. So practice being a beginner with them again. Learn the latest version of their story. If you want a North Star, it's this. Mutual visibility. Two nervous systems whispering to each other, it's safe to exist here. That feeling has consequences far beyond romance. The longest-running adult development work has said it plainly for decades. Good relationships protect our bodies and our brains as we age. It's not the number of people in your life that matters. It's the felt sense that, in the moments that count, someone will show up. And in case you're wondering whether it's too late, whether a relationship can recover after drifting into emotional distance, the answer from the data is surprisingly hopeful. Couples who learn to notice and respond to bids more often, who schedule time for presence rather than just logistics, who repair quickly after small ruptures, do better over the long term. Small changes, repeated, create new baselines. Your body will learn safety again. None of this means your partner must be your everything. Loneliness isn't cured only by romance. Community matters. Friendships matter. Purpose matters. The same biology that makes a hug meaningful also lights up when you volunteer, join a class, sing with others, or simply know your neighbor's name. Your nervous system is hungry for resonance in many forms. Give it more places to eat. So if you feel lonely while being loved, don't shame yourself. Listen, that ache is information. It's your heart remembering what connection should feel like. It's your biology asking for resonance again. Start with one presence practice today, one bid you turn toward, one truth you tell gently. Watch what happens over weeks, not hours. The air gets warmer, your laugh returns quicker. The world stops echoing and starts responding. The static clears slowly, and the signal comes back. One morning, you'll wake up next to someone who loves you, maybe the same person, maybe yourself, and realize the silence in your chest has lifted. Not because your life became perfect, but because you are reachable again. You'll look across the table and see a face that faces back. You were never unloved. You were just unseen. And now, finally, you're looking too. There's another angle to this story that's easy to miss. The body keeps score of connection the same way it keeps score of sleep or nutrition. When you get enough, everything works better. When you don't, systems compensate. Large-scale analyses suggest that robust social ties buffer stress physiology and predict longevity above and beyond income, age, or baseline health. The pattern is consistent across different kinds of relationships and age groups. Public health leaders are saying the same quiet thing out loud now. In recent years, the U.S. Surgeon General released an advisory describing loneliness and social disconnection as a health challenge on the order of other major risk factors, linking poor social connection not only to anxiety and depression, but also to increased risk of heart disease and stroke. The point isn't to scare you, it's to validate the signal. When you feel alone while being loved, your body isn't being dramatic. It's being accurate about a missing nutrient. What breaks connection inside relationships is rarely one dramatic event. It's micro moments left unattended. Research from the Gottman Institute frames these as bids, tiny attempts to connect that we either turn toward or turn away from. Pass a phone showing a meme, sigh after a long meeting, ask, "Did you see the sky tonight?" These are trivial on the surface, vital underneath. Over years, couples who reliably turn toward these bids build a bank account of trust. Couples who miss them don't explode, they erode. We learn how to read bids early. Watch the still face experiment by developmental psychologist Edward Tronick. A mother engages, then suddenly presents a neutral, unresponsive face. The infant first amplifies bids, smiles bigger, points harder, then collapses into withdrawal. The lesson is heartbreaking and precise. Presence regulates, absence dysregulates. Now, fast forward decades. Partners aren't infants, but our nervous systems still carry that wiring. If your bids go unanswered often enough, you stop offering them. Not out of spite, but out of conservation. You hoard your hope. That loss is not just poetic. Neuroimaging work on social pain shows that exclusion lights up the anterior cingulate cortex, a region also involved in the distressing component of physical pain, and recruits regulatory regions of the prefrontal cortex to cope. In chronic disconnection, those alarm systems can dominate the day. It's harder to hear gentle voices. It's harder to interpret silence kindly. It's harder, in short, to feel loved even when you are. Our digital habits complicate this. We live in an economy of attention that treats emotion like content. You can rack up views without ever feeling seen. Studies of young adults have found that heavier social media use tends to track with higher perceived social isolation, even while those same individuals have more connections than ever. Correlation is not causation. The lonely may scroll more, but the pattern fits our experience. 1,000 glances, not a single gaze. So what would it look like to build a life and a relationship where the nervous system regularly receives convincing evidence of safety, interest, and care? It doesn't require personality transplants. It requires rituals that are small enough to do on your worst day and meaningful enough to matter on your best. Try this sequence for 1 week. First minutes, not last. Give each other the first 3 undistracted minutes after waking and after reuniting at the end of the day. Not a debrief, a moment to simply arrive. 1 noticing per day. Name a micro detail you appreciate that has nothing to do with utility. The way they told a story, the way they stirred the tea, the way they kept going when tired. A question that opens. Replace "How was your day?" with "What stayed with you today?" or "What almost went unsaid?" A bit on purpose. Make a tiny request for connection. Sit with me while I clean up. Walk with me to the store. And accept one when it comes your way. A weekly novelty. Share something neither of you has done. A new trail, a recipe, a poem you wouldn't usually read. Novelty wakes attention. Attention rekindles warmth. If you're listening to this and thinking, "I've tried and nothing changes," remember that bodies learn slowly. If your relationship has lived in emotional winter for a while, the first signs of spring are subtle. A softer shoulder, a longer glance, a smaller fight. You won't measure progress by fireworks, but by the return of ordinary ease. Also remember that connection is plural. The adult development work reminds us that the protective effect of relationships includes friends, neighbors, mentors, and communities of practice. If your partnership is in repair, widen your web of resonance. Call the old friend who remembers your laugh. Join the class that gives you a reason to show up. Volunteer where your presence makes a visible difference. These aren't distractions from love. They are fuel for it. People who feel connected somewhere find it easier to reconnect at home. And if you're the partner who hears all this and thinks, "I didn't know. I thought we were fine," take heart. Most distance isn't malice. It's momentum. The fix isn't guilt. It's gentleness plus practice. Ask, "Where have I been hard to reach lately?" Then listen without building a defense. Ask, "What's one thing that would help you feel me again this week?" Then do that one thing consistently, not perfectly. Reliability is romance for a nervous system that has learned to brace. In the end, loneliness inside love is a solvable paradox. It's not a verdict on your worth or a prophecy for your future. It's a data point. Your body is saying, "I need synchrony, not just promises. I need presence, not just proximity. I need to be felt and to feel you in ways that a screen or a schedule can't simulate." So begin where you are. Lower your guard a degree. Turn toward one small bid. Put your hand on a shoulder and leave it there 5 seconds longer than usual. Ask the question that scares you because the answer matters. Bring one new story home this week and ask for one in return. If you do this, not in a burst, but as a way of moving through your days, something quiet and important begins to change. The background alarm eases. The rooms of your life sound different. The familiar face across from you looks less like a photograph and more like a person again. And the ache that brought you here softens into something older and kinder. Belonging. One morning you'll wake, and the first thing you feel won't be the weight in your chest, but the warmth in the room. You'll realize that love didn't leave, attention did. And now attention is back. You were never asking for too much. You were asking for the right thing. To be seen where you actually live, inside a body that longs to sync with another, inside a day that needs a moment of arrival, inside a life that was always meant to be shared, not just side by side, but soul to soul.